Ladies and gentlemen, now we are starting our session 2 with the contemporary conflicts in the world. For the chair of the session, I would like to request Ambassador Nakmana Hashmi, Member Advisory Board, China-Pakistan Studies Center at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, with a real-world experience in the field of Foreign Office. Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi, please join us on stage. For the session presentations, I would like to request Ambassador Zahid Husain, Ambassador of Pakistan to the Netherlands, Republic of Korea, and Iran. He is going to speak. For the second presentation, I would like to call on the stage Mr. Muhammad Awais Anwar, Director of Research, Research Society of International Law, Islamabad. Mr. Awais. He is going to speak on the language of critique, international law in the Gaza conflict. And for the African Society in the 2020, Dr. Greg Mill, Director in Brent Hertz Foundation, Johannesburg. He is going to join us through Zoom link. Presenters, you have 20 minutes to present your papers, and afterwards, Madam Ambassador is going to deliver his address for.
I request Ambassador Javid Husain to present his paper on Kashmir. Please, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. And thank you very much, Dr. Masuma Hasan, for organizing this conference and inviting me to say a few words on Kashmir issue, its identity and its future prospects. Already the preceding distinguished speakers have expressed their views on this party, especially Ambassador Jilani with his vast experience of South Asia and India. So I will try to be as brief as possible because of the shortage of time. I'm not going to go into the history of this dispute, but focus mostly on current geopolitical scenario at global and regional levels and how this issue can be then seen in that context, its implications for Kashmir, and then what are the foreign policy choices open to Pakistan in dealing with this issue. But just a few words of by way of introduction. Kashmir has been an unresolved dispute between Pakistan and India since 1947, when the two countries gained independence. It basically relates to the exercise of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to decide their destiny. It is also a sad story of the continued refusal by India to implement the UN Security Council resolutions calling for a free and impartial plebiscite under UN auspices to let the people of the territory decide whether to join Pakistan or India. India has blatantly reneged from its earlier solemn assurances and commitments given at the UN and affirmed from time to time otherwise in bilateral communications between Pakistan at the highest level in the early years of the dispute to implement those resolutions. The Kashmir dispute has been the main cause of several wars and conflicts between Pakistan and India, and the primary source of tensions and strains in their relations over the past several decades. Moving fast forward, the steps taken by the Government of India on 5 August 2019 to revoke Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, which provided for special autonomous status for Jammu and Kashmir, and Article 35A, which conferred special privileges on the permanent residents of the territory and thereby safeguarded its demographic character, were in fact designed to tighten the Indian stranglehold on the territory in a blatant violation of the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. These resolutions, adopted from time to time, have forbidden any change in the character of the Indian occupied Kashmir or Jammu and Kashmir as a whole, which goes against or in deviation from the UN Security Council resolution. So these steps taken by the Indian government on 5 August 2019 were a clear violation of those provisions of the UN Security Council resolutions. With these steps, the prospects of a peaceful and just solution of the Kashmir dispute, in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people, have, in the foreseeable future, have faded even further. Now, having given these introductory remarks about the Kashmir dispute, let us see how what the Indian strategic goals are in the region, because if you want to look at this dispute, it has to be seen in the context of the Indian strategic goals at the regional and global levels. And number two, how the geopolitical scenarios are developing at global and regional levels and their impact on India's policies and policies of the South Asia region countries. And then what are the implications of these developments for Kashmir dispute, and what are the foreign policy choices open to Pakistan? Pakistan's Kashmir policy has got to be formulated and implemented within the larger context of its India policy, which in turn must be grounded in an accurate understanding of India's strategic goals and geopolitical realities at the regional and global levels. India has for long entertained hegemonic designs in South Asia and the Indian Ocean region. Reputable Indian and foreign scholars have taken note of India's quest for hegemony in the region. For instance, C. Raja Mohan, a noted Indian security analyst, in his article entitled, and I quote, "India and the Balance of Power," unquote, which appeared in the Foreign Affairs issue of July-August 2006, elaborated India's strategic goals in the following manner, and I'm going to quote him now. India's grand strategy divides the world into three concentric circles. In the first, which encompasses the immediate neighborhood, and I'm going to draw your special attention to these words now, India has sought primacy and a veto over the actions of outside powers, and this is covering South Asia. In the second, which encompasses the so-called extended neighborhood stretching across Asia and the Indian Ocean littoral, India has sought to balance the influence of other powers and prevent them from undercutting its interests. In the third, which includes the entire global stage, India has tried to take its place as one of the great powers, a key player in international peace and security, and I end quote. This paragraph, in my view, gives an excellent summary of India's strategic goals at the regional level and at the global levels, and continues to remain relevant. And foreign scholars like Zbigniew Brzezinski and Kissinger have, in their own writings, elaborated or corroborated or confirmed these strategic goals on the part of India. Brzezinski, in his book Strategic Vision, America and the Crisis of Global Power, which appeared in 2012, took note of India's hegemonic ambitions as follows, and I quote him: "Indian strategists speak openly of a greater India exercising a dominant position in an area ranging from Iran to Thailand, India is also positioning itself to control the Indian Ocean militarily. Its naval and air power programs point clearly in that direction, as do politically guided efforts to establish for India strong positions with geostrategic implications in adjoining Bangladesh and Burma or Myanmar, unquote. Henry Kissinger also took note of India's hegemonic designs in his book World Order, which appeared in 2014, and pointed out that India, and I quote him, has established in practice a special position in the Indian Ocean region between East Indies and the Horn of Africa. India strives to prevent the emergence of a dominant position in this vast portion of the globe, just as early American leaders did not seek the approval of the countries of the Western Hemisphere with respect to the Monroe Doctrine. So India, in the region of its special strategic interests, conducts its policy on the basis of its own definition of a South Asian order, unquote. Now, these are the Indians' strategic goals. Now, how does India look at Pakistan? Again, I am quoting C. Raja Mohan. He says that Pakistan's creation, according to Indian point of view, Pakistan's creation is a major obstacle in the realization of India's strategic goals, as this factor left India with a persistent conflict with Pakistan, an internal Hindu-Muslim divide. It separated India from Afghanistan and Iran and created profound problems for India's engagement with the Muslim world because of Pakistan's character as an Islamic state. A large section of the population within India also entertains the hopes of the reversal of the partition, which led to the creation of a Muslim majority Pakistan. The causes of many Pakistan-India disputes can be traced to these two fundamental factors. Number one, India's hegemonic designs, and number two, because India views Pakistan as a major obstacle in the realization of its hegemonic designs. India's hegemonic is, now let us see how India is developing and how that is affecting its strategic ambitions. India's hegemonic ambitions assume a particularly threatening character for the out countries in South Asia because of the growing sway of Hindutva, or the extremist ideology of Hindu nationalism under the leadership of the Modi-led Bharatiya Janata Party, which is closely allied with RSS, a hardline militant organization. Both these organizations are wedded to the ideology of Hindutva, which seeks to define Indian culture exclusively in terms of Hindu values, contrary to the earlier claim of secularism. What it implies for the Muslims, Christians, and other minorities in India can be gauged from the following quotation from a famous work of 1938 by the second supreme leader of RSS, and I am going to quote him now. Because this remains relevant despite the fact that it was written a long time ago. Statements by current leaders of India belonging to BJP and RSS have confirmed this kind of, or issued similar statements. And I'm quoting now Gulwalkar, the second supreme leader of RSS. Quote, "The non-Hindu people of Hindustan must either adopt Hindu culture and language, must learn and respect and hold in reverence the Hindu religion, must entertain no idea but of those of glorification of Hindu race and culture. In a word, they must cease to be foreigners or may stay in the country wholly subordinated to the Hindu nation, deserving no privileges, far less any preferential treatment, not even citizens' rights," unquote. The extremist character of Hindutva and its growing sway in India explain the increasing incidents of persecution and discrimination against minorities, including Muslims and Christians, and the destruction of their places of worship in it. Indian Prime Minister Modi is fully committed to the Hindutva ideology, which was on display in the large-scale massacre of Muslims in Gujarat in 2002, when Modi was its chief minister. His recent remarks during the election campaign calling Muslims as infiltrators also reflect the spirit of Hindutva steeped in Hindu bigotry. Under its influence, India has adopted a muscular and belligerent style of diplomacy in dealing with its neighbors, including Pakistan. This style was reflected in the airstrike at Balakot inside Pakistan in February 2019, the annexation of Jammu and Kashmir in August 2019 by revoking Articles 370 and 35A of the Constitution, to which I referred earlier, in violation of the UN Security Council resolutions, and more recently, acts of terrorism and assassination sponsored and organized by India in Balochistan and other areas of Pakistan, and also in other countries of the world, including Canada and US. It is noteworthy, now this is of course how India is changing politically, socially inside, but India is also developing into a major economic and military power. And that has again relevance for the fulfillment of its hegemonic ambitions, and therefore it has implications for Pakistan's security and for the Kashmir dispute. It is noteworthy that India's rapid economic growth over the past 3 decades, followed by the build-up of its military power, has facilitated its pursuit of hegemonic ambitions mentioned earlier. Its GDP, India's GDP, in nominal terms in the year 2023, last year, was estimated to be $3.7 trillion, catapulting it to the 5th position in the ranking of the world economies. It is projected to reach the figure of $7.3 trillion by 2030, making India the 3rd biggest economy in the world after US and China. By the year 2050, there are some projections that India may emerge as the 2nd biggest economy in the world after China, relegating US to the 3rd position. By way of comparison, Pakistan's GDP in 2023 was estimated to be $340 billion only, just 1/10 almost of the size of India. Whereas India is expected to grow a record GDP growth rate of over 6% in 2024, in the current year, Pakistan will remain stuck with a slow GDP growth rate of about 2%. India's rapid economic growth has provided it with the resources to build up its military strength at a fast pace in pursuit of its hegemonic ambitions and national goals at regional and global levels. According to Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, India's military expenditure in 2022 was estimated to be $81.4 billion, as against $10.3 billion in Pakistan, for Pakistan. Okay. Its efforts to seek the permanent membership of the UN Security Council, the premier multilateral institution dealing with the burning issues of international peace and security, also needs to be seen against the background of its hegemonic ambitions and its desire to assert its power at regional and global levels. The power imbalance between Pakistan and India has further tilted in favor of the latter because of its rapidly developing strategic partnership with the US-led West, bilaterally, and through such arrangements as Quad and AUKUS to counter the expansion of China's power and influence in the South Asia and Indian Ocean region. Now, what are the implications of these developments for Kashmir? History is a witness that major issues of peace and security are ultimately decided on the basis of power rather than the provisions of international law and morality, which can strengthen one's position internationally but cannot play a decisive role in this settlement. This is true about the Kashmir dispute also. We cannot rely just on Security Council resolutions for its just settlement in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people. Unfortunately, our policymakers have historically placed excessive reliance on US Security Council resolutions to the neglect of other requirements of realpolitik in handling the Kashmir dispute. And the most important thing was to build up Pakistan's economic and military power, because without that, you cannot have any hope of achieving a fair settlement of the Kashmir dispute. And this is our major weakness right now, that Pakistan has grown weaker compared with relative to India over the past several decades, weakening our ability to secure a fair settlement of the Kashmir dispute. Now, what kind of policy changes are required on the part of Pakistan if we have to have any hope of a fair settlement over the long run? The foregoing analysis calls for a radical change of policy and strategy by Pakistan in the interest of a satisfactory settlement of the Kashmir dispute. To start with, Islamabad should adopt a well thought out, long-term strategy for the realization of its goal of a just and fair settlement of the Kashmir dispute in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people and the UN Security Council resolution. The real strategy must be grounded in the evolving geopolitical realities at the regional and global levels and formulated within the framework of a grand strategy to guide the overall direction and determine the essential contours of national policy in various fields. This would require, above all, the strengthening of Pakistan politically on democratic lines while upholding the sanctity of the Constitution. This, of course, means every institution must remain within its constitutional boundaries. Accelerating Pakistan's economic, scientific, and technological development while maintaining its credible security deterrent. A proactive foreign policy which, instead of being reactive, which has been unfortunately our past experience and performance, is ahead of events, and continued moral, political, diplomatic support to the Kashmir cause. And when I say moral, political, diplomatic support, I mean this policy should be both our declaratory policy and it should be also our operational policy. And in the past, that has not been the case. After our tactical policy adjustments to day-to-day developments and short-term Kashmir policy must be within the framework of our long-term India and Kashmir strategies. Our short-term goal should be to persuade India, if possible, to end its atrocities and human rights violations in an Indian-occupied Kashmir, reducing its suffocating military presence in the territory, encourage India to reverse its actions of 5 August 2019, and cross LOC acts of violence and promote cross LOC trade and travel. A satisfactory settlement of the Kashmir dispute in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people will have to await, and I would like to emphasize, will have to await an opportune time in the future when strategic realities turn in our favor. Pending the final settlement of the Kashmir dispute, Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir, I would recommend strongly, should be integrated with the approval of the people of these territories, integrated with Pakistan as its 5th and 6th provinces on a provisional basis. Finally, I'm just concluding, despite the bleak prospects of a satisfactory settlement of the Kashmir dispute in the foreseeable future, as neighbors, we should not avoid a dialogue with India for dealing with important issues such as security, military balance, Kashmir, other outstanding disputes, terrorism, trade and economic cooperation on a level playing and mutually beneficial basis. Both things are important. It should be on a level playing field and it should be mutually beneficial. We cannot afford to have just free trade. And water, climate, health and humanitarian issues. Thank you very much.
Who's also my mentor, and I've had the great privilege of working with him, not only as his SO, but also as his director in the UN division. So thank you very much for, as always, a very comprehensive statement by